got a haircut and they
I wanted to dress up my dog Taco as a taco.
Oh, that's super funny. Okay, so today we're going to be finishing up standard form. We're going to talk about, okay, now not only can we find the intercepts, so we're sort of doing standard form part 2, or continued. Okay, not only do we want to be able to find the intercepts, but we sort of want to be able to talk more about what those intercepts are, when it's helpful to find those intercepts, how can we find the other information? Like, how can we talk about slope if we're not finding that from where it's at? And those types of pieces, okay? So, we said yesterday, standard form is something in the form ax plus by equals c. So, if we have something like 3x minus 6y equals 24, this would be in standard form. Okay, and when we're in standard form, what two things did we say we could easily find? The x and y intercepts. What's an intercept?
where they cross at 0.
Right, where it's crossing the axis. Okay, so how would we find the x-intercept of this problem up here? Okay, so we're ignoring the y. Why are we able to ignore the y? Do you remember why we were able to do that?
Because we divide by 0. Oh wait.
When you multiply by,
0.
keep going,
It means nothing.
it goes away. Why did we know we could plug in a y value of 0 if we were looking for the x-intercept?
Because the axis is 0.
Right? Because when we're on that x-axis, our y value is always 0. So at an x-intercept, our y value is always 0. Right? So we were plugging in 0. We knew that would make this go away. And then we would just solve the one-step equation. And we would get an x-intercept of what? 8. How would we write that as an ordered pair?
8, 0, 8.
I don't know. Is it 0, 8 or 8, 0?
Well, the x-axis
That
is
is
0.
8, comma 0.
8, 0.
X is 8. Y was 0. It's the x-intercept, so the x value has to be the 8.
Wait, hold on, I'm confused. Why is the 1 really 0 again?
Because if we're looking on a coordinate plane and we're talking about an x-intercept, we're talking about a point where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so any point on the x-axis, right, has to be some type of ordered pair that is a number comma 0. Because if it's a number comma 1, then we're going over and up. So the y value here has to be 0. That's the only way we don't leave the x-axis.
Okay.
Right? This is 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0. So we know the y value has to be 0 because we're on the x-axis.
Okay.
Okay? What did we say that our y value would be? Or our y-intercept, I should say. What's our y-intercept on this one?
-4.
If I cover up, y -4.
It's 24 divided by -6.
Because you have to solve this one-step equation, right? So we're solving by dividing by -6. 24 divided by -6 gives us a y-intercept of -4. Are we okay with the y-intercept being -4? What would this be as an ordered pair?
0,
Yes,
0, -4. Why do we know that that x value is 0?
Because
you're
the
just-
y-intercept is
Put in the-
-4.
It's
Or
not
the
giving you
y is
information.
-4.
Because it's on the axis.
It's
Because it's on the y, right? A y-intercept is on the y-axis, so the x value has to be 0 because we can't move right or left. Okay, so once we know that information, that's then enough information for us to turn this into a graph. So if I want to then equation, 3x minus 6y equals 24, I'm going to do all the steps that I did yesterday. I'm going to get an x-intercept. I'm going to get a y-intercept. Okay, you don't have to rewrite it as an ordered pair. I just had to do that to make sure we knew where we were talking about. Okay, and we will then plot the two intercepts. So I will plot an x-intercept of 8, or 8 comma 0. And I will plot a y-intercept of 0 comma negative 4. How many points do we need to make a line?
3.
Oh. You can have 2.
2 points makes a line. Why did I have you do 3 before?
See if it was correct.
To make sure we were checking ourselves, right? Because 2 points always make a line. So we are a little bit at a risk here that if we didn't do something correct, we're a little bit out of luck. However, we have a lot less room to make mistakes. When we made a table, there was a lot more places we could make mistakes. Here we have a lot less. So hopefully we won't make those mistakes, right? And we can then draw our line in between those 2 points. Okay, so that told me an x-intercept and a y-intercept. Did that tell me the slope? No, what if I want to know the slope of this line? What could I then do? Brayden?
Find points like in between the lines that like match up with the cross. That's kind of hard to explain.
I don't even need to find another point. I know what you mean by a good point, but do I already have 2 good points?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I already have 2 good points, that's enough for me to count rise over run. Okay, so I could look at this graph,
Up 4, right?
and I would go up 4 over 8. So my slope would be up 4 over 8. Is that how I should leave my slope?
No.
No, how should I rewrite it? 1/2. How else could I find the slope? Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1, and I could use these 2 ordered pairs. Yes,
There's
right?
another slope in between it. It's up 2 over 4.
Up 2 over 4 would be the same thing as 1/2.
Yeah.
The risk with picking a point in between here is that you'd have to draw it perfectly. I did a really good job of drawing that line, but you all know that that doesn't happen most of the time. Okay?
Wait, 1, 2, 2.
Brayden's saying, like, this line I happened to draw really well. I mean, this was a pretty good line. I'm kind of impressed in myself. But if we were to pick this point right here as a good point, up 2 over 4, and 2 over 4 would reduce to 1/2 as well. That's just a little bit risky because if you don't draw the line perfectly, then you could pick a good point that's not really a good point. Are we okay on that? Okay, so let's say I want to graph this. Right? A week ago when you took the test, you'd be solving for y and making a table. Now what are you going to do when you want to graph this? What could we do to get a graph here? Okay, so recognize that this is in standard form and find the x and y intercept. So if I cover up here to find my x-intercept, what am I going to divide by? 1/2. So what is 6 divided by 1/2?
12.
12.
-3.
How do I feel about these as intercepts?
No.
I mean, we did our math correctly, right? Any problem with me actually graphing this? What do you say, Brayden?
You're trying to put it in like 2 ordered pairs. So for the first one, I put 12, 0.
So when we're plotting them, we can. So you actually missed this part yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. We said yesterday that we could just assume that if we're talking about an intercept, we could assume this is the point 12, 0 without actually having to write it down. Now, is it the point 12, 0? Yes. How do we feel about though plotting these 2 points? Well, let's start plotting them.
Wait.
What's my y-intercept?
3.
No problem. What's my x-intercept?
Does that go up to
12.
12? Does it go up to
Yeah, mine doesn't go to 12, so what's the dilemma here?
You have to change.
Does it fit on the graph?
No.
No, so you have to make
And
it
how did we feel about things not fitting on the graph?
We just normally switched it.
We just picked a different point, right? Do we have the luxury of doing that here?
Can't you just make a table though? Like try to?
Okay, so, well, the thing is that yesterday everybody was giving me the stink eye. They were super annoyed at me because this was a way easier way to graph. And they were all going, why didn't we do this first? This is way easier. Here is why. Okay? This isn't always perfect. Because it only gives me 2 points. And in this case, these 2 points don't fit on the graph I provided. And if I'm only relying on this, I have no other option. So I just have to go back to making a table. Okay, we're going to talk about some other solutions as we look at other forms, but our hands are kind of tied because this one only gives us 2 points. So the best that we can do right now is go off the graph and approximate, or solve for y and make a table. So standard form is great. It's simple. It's easy. But it's not perfect. And we need to make sure we keep that sort of playing in the back of our minds. Okay, let's look at one more here and then we're done with notes. How about if we were asked to graph y plus 3x equals 3. Is this in standard form?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's different about this one?
The X and Y.
Yeah, the x and y are flip-flopped, but is that really a problem?
No.
Because can we change the order of addition? Yeah, so if you're one of the people you're like, I really want my x to be first and my y to be second, right? You could rewrite it and flip it because we can change the order of addition. But we don't need to. It's fine as long as they're on the same side. Okay, so what's our x-intercept going to be?
1.
Because we'll cover up here. So our x-intercept is 1. What's our y-intercept going to be?
3 over 2.
3 over 2. How do we feel about that as an intercept?
Doesn't that need
Okay, so most of you I'm hearing decimal because you'd prefer to think about this as a decimal when you go to graph it. Yes, Brayden?
I think I know what you're supposed to do with that.
What do you think?
It's basically like you're trying to find what it's saying, so you'd go up 3, positive 3, and then over 2. Right?
Not yet. Hang on to that thought for next trimester.
Next trimester?
Yeah. Okay, so when we're looking here at this one, I mean, we did the math. We have our 2 intercepts. I can plot my x-intercept of 1. Can I exactly plot my y-intercept of 1.5? No, what do I have to do?
estimate?
I have to approximate it. And how does Mrs. McKinney feel about approximating? I don't like it, right? Unless we absolutely have to, unless it's a story problem, we know we're ready for a label. Unless it's something we know we are done doing work with, we don't necessarily want to approximate because it can make other numbers get off by a bit. Okay, so here's another example of standard form not being perfect. It's simple, it's great, but right now the best we can do is either approximate or go back to solving for y and making a table and plugging in those points.
What do you mean by approximate?
I don't know exactly where 1.5 is. Like, is this 1.5 or is this 1.52?
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna do some practice with making sure we're good with intercepts, making sure we're good at getting this on a graph, but also keeping in the back of our mind that standard form isn't perfect. Okay?